Hey, welcome back to the Breakout Barn. On tonight's episode, overnight lawnmower blades from Japan. They're neon green, Amazon special. 2-day UPS priority mail shipping for free. So on tonight's episode of This Old Car, featuring the ghost of Bob Vila and myself, T to the R, Tucker, we explore how not to charge GoPro. First and foremost, this one's coming to you live from my Pixel 3 because apparently in my house that I've lived in for 3 years, there are certain outlets that even when you plug something into them, they don't actually provide power until you flip a light switch. So GoPro's been dead for, 3 days. Thought it was charged the whole time. Got out here, beep beep, no dice. So I'm going to see what I could do here with this. Video quality should be fine, I hope. If not, Google you suck. I guess we'll find out when we get in there, but I'm here, I'm committed, and I'm gonna get it done. So now that we've decided that we are not going to do overnight lawnmower blades from Japan, as exciting as that would be, we are going to finish getting out the rest of the interior tonight. If I've got time, I'm gonna try and start a little bit of cutting back the dash and seeing what that looks like. Probably not gonna take the saw to the floors, simply because, I might have time. We'll see. Again, gonna do a little bit of time lapse. Gonna drop some stuff in the annotations on the video. I believe those are called subtitles, annotations, little annoying notes that I do about the process for moving this. Fair warning, zero research on how to do this, so I'm going to go at it from a best guess and check. I believe that's called hypotheses or something, scientific term again, but shouldn't be too hard. Find the bolts holding the thing, tug on it a little bit, see what falls out. That's what she said. Guess we'll do that all from a time lapse again, and see what we can find out. All right, let's get to it. All right, so welcome back. Day 2 of the video that I started before that my GoPro was dead and my phone died, and voila, magic out, dash. So what we've got here is a typical example of a 1972 Datsun 240Z. 1972 Datsun 240Z dash. Pretty much everything from this era that used one of these shitty kind of vinyl foam dashes, right? So as you can see, we've got some pretty deep cracks here. We got 1, 2, 3 that are straight through, and one that's like 60% of it is all the way through, and the rest of it is formed. But kind of sucks because a little bit into the contour of the gauge there. I am going to rip all the gauges out. Well, not rip. I'm going to gingerly take them out so that I do not damage them. And then I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a step-by-step walkthrough of how we repair the dash. In we go. All right, so hopefully you can hear me. You got it still in the housing, don't have the external mic hooked up, but tend to be pretty loud dudes, so I'm assuming that we're great. If not, I'm just going to crank the gain up in post. So after that long-ass time lapse, I have no idea what it's going to turn out to in seconds, but it's probably going to be like a minute for you guys. Been about 40-ish minutes or so for me. A little bit of figuring out, a little bit of taking some mental notes as to where the wiring goes in the backside of the dash. I think that I made the ultimate decision that I am going to shoehorn this bad boy in there. So some of the wiring is not so critical as some of it goes to the gauges, but just wanted to make sure that as I was reassembling this, I knew where everything went, so that if I was planning on keeping one of the factory gauges, you know, stuff like the hazard switch, the dimmer, the fuel gauge. Fuel gauge is important. So just wanted to make sure that I recognized where those were going to go, and that we were prepped there. So overall, I'm going to walk you through what we found on the dash so far. So overall, pretty decent shape. The underside of it, obviously, the areas that weren't in the sun. Pretty good condition. A little bit of surface rust on the inside of the dash. Looks like just a little bit of moisture. Parts of the frame are in extremely good condition, and other parts I think might have fallen victim to some mouse pee over time because they've got a little bit of bubbling on them. Everything came out really well. Really surprised. There's a small trim ring on this hazard switch. Let me see if I can grab it and show you. If you go to take this out, there's a small trim ring on this hazard switch. These little two indents there. I used a pick, and it came off surprisingly really well. I've seen some horror stories about taking these things off and how they don't want to move when the threads. I'm probably going to put a tiny bit of never seize on there, anti-seize, anti-never seize. Don't stick. How's that? On the threads before I put it back together, just to make sure that if I ever want to take it off in the future, that it comes apart pretty easily. Really surprised, the lettering on hazard off is still there. You can see a small hole there where somebody probably tried to take this guy off before and slipped a wee bit. This, for those that don't know, is the trip odometer reset. If you go to pop this guy out, there's a small E-clip here. Hoping that focuses. Ooh. There's a small E-clip here. You pop the E-clip off and the whole thing drops down. The collar that attaches to the back of the speedometer, unfortunately, is too thick to pass through the bearing housing in the dash, which is fine because what we care about is getting the knob out of the way. This spring coating, we don't really care if we get a little bit of whatever we're going to use to refinish the dash on it. Knob for the dimmer switch, slides on and off. Great. Fantastic design, Datsun. Thank you. That Sony head unit. Let me show you this pile of garbage. So this is what was left of the jute and the vinyl that came out and unfortunately just started tearing apart. You'll see in the earlier time lapse that I put a respirator on halfway through because this stuff just started, it looks like it's horsehair. Don't know what it actually is, but definitely don't want to breathe it. It started flaking off. It was disgusting. This loaf of crap is a Sony XR77 made from 1981 to 1984. And whoever wired this was probably Stevie Wonder's cousin.
Freddy No Eyes, I guess. It was horrific. Vampire clips everywhere. There's one guy I want to show you. No idea where it was supposed to go to. Here we go. Oh, what? So that's a bullet connector into 3 spade connectors that have been taped together. And then this wire just goes somewhere into the back of the car in the wheel well here, and vampire clips off of brake lights, reverse lights. I don't know. Couldn't tell you, but regardless, back to the dash, back to what we're here for. Whoever installed that radio also installed an on-off switch here. So I don't know if somebody had a bit of a battery draw, if they just really didn't want someone to listen to the radio at some point. Maybe the passenger wanted to screw with the driver a little bit. Little flippy guy here. Really, honestly, a shame that they did that, but at least it's a nice round concentric hole. It's just more work for me, but sometimes it just be like that. Small little crack in the pad over here that we're gonna fill, and that's about it. So moving on to the larger guys that we care about. So I'm not sure if you could see this. So we can get an angle here. But when these cracks happen, the vinyl actually arches up away from the crack, so it dries out and it pulls back away, and it creates this little lip here. So what we need to do is I'm going to take my Dremel and a sanding drum, and I'm going to knock this down at like a 45-degree angle. And what I want to do is create an area like a V-groove that I can then fill with material and sand flat without having to sand through the vinyl here. Same thing goes for these as well. You can see it. Maybe you can see it. It's very easy to feel. It's a little bit difficult to see. So I'm going to knock this back a little bit. I mean, not a huge amount, just enough to get some surface contact in there to make contact with the old vinyl, the filler, new vinyl, and we're good to go. You can see through here. I was going to use some white tape. I guess I used blue because I had an open roll, but the blue is plenty easy to see. Over here, there's actually this metal frame underneath the dash pad itself, extends all the way up to the gauges. And because of that, there's a nice backer in here. So even though this crack does go through to that plate, I don't have to worry about the filler that I'm going to put in just falling out of the bottom. Over here, not so much. It's nice and open. You know, Colin McRae's lightness or something like that. So what I've done is I've taken a couple of strips of blue painter's tape and affixed it to the underside of the dash just to give it a little bit of something to sit on. After I cut this back, I'm going to be filling these deeper cracks initially with great stuff. That's right, expanding foam. The reason for doing that is that expanding foam tends to penetrate a lot better than like fiberglass imbued Bondo does. So that's normally the common way to fix these dashes or dashes in general is I forget the name of the company. There's a big company that slings out there everywhere. If you look up like dash repair kit, they're going to show up. What those guys suggest is you use all of their products and all of their steps, and it's great and it works. But what they have is essentially a thicker fiberglass imbued Bondo, and all those fiberglass fibers do is create a stronger Bondo, right? So it gives it something more to adhere to. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut these back, fill the initials with expanding foam, wipe it down nice and flat as we can get it. We're going to come through, we're going to sand them down even more, and then we're going to Bondo over the expanding foam. And the reason for doing so is that Bondo obviously creates a much nicer, smoother surface to primer over. And it's a lot easier to work with in its final form. Some of the expanding foams, if they're not quite mixed 100% perfectly, or you use them just outside the temperature range, like It's 47 degrees in here right now, so probably a little cold for what they recommend. You get a lot of porosity in the foam, and when you're sanding it, there's a tendency to get these microscopic little air dimples that once you put primer on and then you know, maybe another layer of primer and then some paint, it's really hard to get rid of that tiny little dip at the base, right? So the more time that you spend on the prep work, the easier it's going to be to finish it on the end. It is also possible to take this dash pad off. I left it on because I was worried about the length of these cracks and wanting it to be adhered to the frame to maintain the form and the original functionality or the original fit of the dash pad itself. So with that being said, probably going to jump back into another time lapse, and I will show you guys what I've done once I've cut this back, sanded it, and then we'll go from there. All right, quick bit of talking, back to work. You can see here what I was talking about. So I cut it back, basically just the width of 60 grit drum sander or barrel sander, depending on what part of the world you're from. Just to cut back, essentially, the width of the bit itself, the width of the drum itself, just to make sure that the foam was exposed and that there was a nice bit of taper here. You can see what I'm talking about, the porosity of the original foam in there. You can see a little bit more of the frame as it gets through. And what we're going to do is we're gonna stick that hose in there and get some foam nice in there, real good and deep black. And then smooth it right off the top. Keep smoothing it a couple times as it continues to expand. And then we're going to let it set up for a day and come back tomorrow night, sand it down, throw some Bondo over the top of it, primer the dash, and decide what we want to do with it. So, time lapse. All right, so maybe plan B. You cannot make this shit up. Tip snapped right off. So, YOLO, I guess. I don't really know. I don't really know what to do at this point. I guess we need another can. All right. All right, super quick because my battery died. Found another can of great stuff. Woo! Nozzle worked. Good thing I'm kind of a hoarder, I guess. Anyways, that was a while ago. I got it set up. GoPro died. Set it on the charger, and apparently didn't get much because I am still getting blinked at for a low battery. So of course I'm a dumbass, and I only turned the heat on not soon enough. I got up to like 55 in here. Fine for me. I was fine when it was 47, but Bondo was super thick. So here we are. Kind of looks like textured dog shit. Got some nice smooth layers. Got to made sure that it penetrated all the way through. Started bowing out the tape in some places. If you guys have never worked with Bondo before, especially the stuff with the fiberglass imbued Bondo. If you guys have never worked with fiberglass imbued Bondo before, it's like Bondo, but like just about to be hard Bondo. It is a forearm workout and a half to try and spread this stuff. So, got it in there. A couple of the areas here, it's literally like thrown on there, mostly because there's a lot of hand contouring that I have to do in here, and I'd rather have more than less to work with. Same thing goes for here. There's a pretty unique a bevel to this, contour it down. It's kind of a combination of a few different angles that come in here. This one's pretty straightforward. Again, you can always sand it off. It's a pain in the ass to have to add more. This hole down here, cleaned up, super nice. You can see it's already starting to shrink back a little bit because I went light with it. So what I'm hoping is that I can come back, skim past that, sand everything up top, coat that again, nice little skim coat, sand it back again. Might be able to get away with primer depending on how good of a job I did at actually applying it and sanding it back like a high-rise primer. This corner was a mess. It was, I don't know if I showed it off before, but I ended up cutting it back at like an angle through, of course destroying any semblance of kind of pass-through things. So I did take a mold of it with one of those little red gauge guys, so I am going to be able to match it up to what it originally was, but again, threw extra on there because it's Bondo and why not. That's it. It's 11:05. This shit's got us set for a while. Sorry, this stuff has got us set for, no, I'm just kidding, it's shit. Has got us set for a while, especially with the temperatures it's getting down to at night. I'm going to give it a solid 2 days or so, probably not going to touch it again until the weekend. Probably going to wrap this video here, and then part 2 will be actually sanding, priming, putting some glue on it. I'm thinking that I might flock it. I've always been partial to the look. I also realized when I was taking everything apart before that, remember that guy that put the radio in? Yeah, well, corner is gone. Gone. And in its place, he put a nice metal plate over the top of it. Sorry, let's look at it this way. Put a nice metal plate over the top of it to mount the radio, so I didn't even realize it was missing until just now. So props to me for being observant. That being said, this was a factory AC car, and I'm probably not going to keep AC in it. Debating heat at this point. Probably going to keep heating it because defroster and that kind of stuff. But defroster doesn't really work without AC, so maybe we'll just send it. I don't know, the exhaust can keep us warm. But anyways, I've always really liked the idea of or the look of flocked dashes. I think this one's going to end up flocked, specifically because it's really not in that great of shape, and I'm not going to feel guilty about doing it. If it was in better shape, particularly as I cleaned it up, you can see there's a strong discoloration.
All right, told you my battery was dying. This one sucks. So I went from Pixel to GoPro to Pixel to GoPro to GoPro back to Pixel. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. I gotta get a new camera or new batteries at least, because I'm shooting with the GoPro Hero 2, which is 10 years old at this point, but it works. And if it broke, why fix it? So, but now I guess it's broke, so I gotta fix it. Anyways, that being said, see a little bit, you can't really tell from the video, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. There's some more splits that are starting to happen when I clean this up really lightly with the rag. I started to notice some perforations and some pulls and some tearing. So unless I'm gonna skim coat and redo the entire dash, I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna stick with flocking it. I've got a 3D printer, and I've mentioned some fabrication tools before, so I think I'm going to try and do something cool with the center stack, especially if I'm going to go with the LS in the car. I'm probably going to need some additional doodads and stuff, so between the 3D printer, plasma cutter, blah, 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 whatever, I think I can make some pretty cool plates for in here, some switch banks, that kind of, gauges and that kind of stuff as well. Plus a radio, because music is cool and exhaust is cooler, and they both have to be loud or you can't hear either one. So that's about it, and thanks for tuning in again. Sorry, no communism jokes. Coronavirus sucked all of them away. Not allowed to make them anymore. Hope everyone is enjoying their quarantine. Again, stay the hell away from people. Just because you feel invincible doesn't mean that somebody that you're running into isn't. That light just went out. LED bulbs. Couldn't tell you. It's probably going to come back on in like 5 minutes when it cools down, because that's great. So anyways, Tucker's life advice: stay away from people. Keep yourself busy. I don't know what to do with my hands.